Hello, Billy Ho here, coming at you with another PGA preview video. This week's PGA event, the 3M Open, we are headed to Blaine, Minnesota for TPC Twin Cities, the 3M Open. So if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Almost to 1,000 subs. Help me get there, get over that hump. Appreciate all the likes, comments, all that good stuff, shout outs. Let's get started. Okay, TPC Twin Cities is a 7,400 31-yard par 71 golf course. The fairways and greens, bent grass, 3-inch rough is bluegrass and fescue. We're going to do a little Google flyover right now to show you some of the holes and just give you an idea on what the course layout is, because the course is loaded with water. It's right in the middle of like the Land of Lakes. About 12 on the stem. Will depend on probably the weather. We'll cover that in a second. The fairways are generous, as I said. The greens are large and receptive. The first thing you're probably going to want to do on a course like this is stay out of trouble off the tee. There is water, like I said, lurking everywhere. But if your placement is right and a lot of layup holes, you should not, unless it's a really unforced error. Fairway hit percentage is up there, so don't be too awfully concerned with fairways gaining everything, because things do even out. But I think golfers need to follow a plan. There are holes to open it up on and hit the bombs, and then there's holes where you just lay it up to the good spot 230 yards down the way. So this is more of a total iron game, in my opinion, rather than a wedge fest. Layup holes are probably going to leave you 175 to 200 in that range, and other holes can leave you anywhere from 125 out to 155 out, so on and so forth, depending on where you end up, because there's a lot of left to right dog legs around water and things of that nature. So green and regulation percentage way high this week, and putting. So people will say around the green doesn't matter as much, but I think you still need to have, say like a 70 to 30 on the short game. You want to be putting at a 70 and having 30 around the green if you just wanted to break down percentages of how important the short game is. So what I want to see now is going to determine a lot. The weather can play a part in this. Highs near 100 degrees predicted for Wednesday and Thursday. So that always in the summertime can lead to pop-up storms in the afternoons, most likely. So we'll have to just keep our eye on that. We still got a long way to go before we get an idea. But, and also the wind can fluctuate. But if you can see by this little wind chart, it's kind of the roller coaster type of wind, as I call it. It's calm in the morning, but up to 10 to 15 in the afternoon. But it looks predictable, so we'll know about AM, PM draws and whatnot. The temperature does seem to cool down over the weekend, which leads me to believe that the front's coming through, so it's going to drop down into the low 90s, high 80s. So anyway, as you can imagine, there's a lot of birdie holes on this golf course. There are 10 holes that are better than 20% on the birdie rates, as you can see from the breakdown here. And the 3 par 5s are all reachable in 2. Water is in play, but avoidable. So like I said, unforced errors a lot of times lead to finding the wet stuff. Getting greedy leads to finding the wet stuff. You want to try to cut off that edge and try to get as close as you can. And sometimes you don't always cover the water. Now, holes 1, 5, 7, 10, and 16 are among the easier par 4s that are short-ish, between 380, 420 yards long. You can also see here what the past conditions were to give you an idea on how hard the course played, because some years it plays hard, some years it's not, or some days it can fluctuate. We had a weather incident, I believe, on Friday or something a couple years ago that caused the scores to skyrocket. So conditions can be affected. Green softness, scoring relative to par, as you can see from the stats. Speaking of stats, the skill sets, which I've already kind of discussed a little bit. Average driving distance is roughly 290 yards, high green in regulation percentage, but for some reason, putting is not that, or three putting avoidance is not that big a stat. I'll probably have a little bit of it, but these greens are just kind of easier to lag putt on. But it will come down to approach proximity and putting. I think the player with the irons that are dialed in and that can convert those 7 to 15-foot birdie opportunities is going to take home the trophy. Now, here's a look with what I'll start with in my first looks models. This model's got some things from Fantasy National in it, and then I'll throw up a screenshot here in a second of just a list of things that I will run when Rick Run Good loads his site up with next week's players. And I know I messaged him about that before just to try to get him in sooner, but he gets busy. You know, it's understandable sometimes. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but it would be very helpful if I had a player list on his website right now. So anyway, long irons in hand, last 12 to 24 rounds on irons, I think is a good idea to start somewhere in that range. Obviously par 5 scoring, maybe just a touch of eagles. The par 3s are between 177 and 205, so longer irons are going to be in effect. And I like to go to the Golf News Network page when you get the field, because it gives you the list. It lists the top 50 players in the field separate from the rest of them. So check that site out, Golf News Network, GNN. If you want to just look at the field and then to get an idea, here's a list of the top 50 players that are in the field this week. You can see some of those stellar names, and it makes it easier to pick through your players when you first start looking at stuff with a full field event like this. And so anyway, they're talking about players. We got a whole list of guys. Here's a more models and looks at the field strokes gained, like total over the last several weeks and whatnot. Vincent Norman obviously just recently won the Barbasol. He looks like a really good course fit here. Eric Cole seems to be course everything. He just plays so well. He's so good at everything plus putting. And this is going to be a big emphasis on putting this week. So Eric Cole, I'm definitely going to have interest in. Obviously, Aberg has just been playing lights out. Austin Eckroat's been playing well. I think both the Hogards are in here, but Nikolai is the one that I probably have interest in there. Bhatia, Peter Quest, who let everybody down at the Barbasol, not making the cut at 30% owned, is back for more. Taylor Pendrith, who played quite well in that same Barbasol, and Aaron Rye. Also veterans like Keith Mitchell, Cam Davis, Jaegerbaum, Stephen Jaeger, always interesting. Mark Hubbard has been having a really, really solid season. So there's another first look model, has guys like Gim. Gary Woodland has been playing pretty well. I can't figure him out though. He always seems to be missing something, whether it's putting, chipping, or irons. But mostly the ball striking is good with him. But one of my new favorite guys has got to be Sepp Straka. I've been playing him. I was on him when he won a couple weeks ago, played him at the Open. He's coming through like a champ this week. One of the few players that I had that did. But any course, I think, where he hits that draw off the tee is helpful. And I went through some of the other holes just to look other than what I've shown you. And there's a lot of holes on here he can utilize that draw on to get it to, steer away from trouble and to cut around that long hole with the water where you got to do the big loop like you have at the API. So hopefully it's a good week to get back on the good side. And, maybe we'll catch people slipping off of the last major hangover and they're not putting in the research that they need. So you can get all your research here at Billy Ho Sports. So hit that subscribe button for me. I appreciate you watching. And until the next time, see you soon.